awesome.
But it goes right in line with what we were talked about last week, right, Chip and Jim, about the tactics. Hey, here's a website, and granted this was going to be a BEC, but it's similar, in terms of opening up these attack in the middle, adversary in the middle attacks.
Yeah.
So
And
really,
Ricky, I think you have two wins here. The first is you're going to get a new customer. That's great. The big win is that your training for your existing customer, where she got suspicious, has been effective. That's actually like super win in my opinion.
Yes. And there's a third one that's arriving, the Whataburger.
Jim, can we maybe have Whataburgers for any win of the week? Like,
I don't even know what they are.
You're leaving the West Coast out here if you do that.
I know. Like, I'm on the East Coast. I don't even know what they are.
Same. I don't know what it is either.
They're in
Must be
Florida.
super-
They're in Georgia. They got bought out. Yeah.
I've lived in Florida almost my whole life.
Yeah, they started together with Buc-ee's. They started kind of going that way.
It seems like a super regional deal.
Yeah, there's no Buc-ee's here either, I don't think.
They were founded in Corpus Christi, Texas. So the original Whataburger is still there, but like Enrique said, they got acquired 2 or 3 years ago by a Chicago-based company. So yeah, people were not happy that Whataburger is no longer a Texas-based corporation, even though their headquarters is in San Antonio, where I live.
They claim that the burger tastes different. To me, it tastes the same. It's just pricier,
but they take branding really seriously. Like, so if everything there, like their file folders and everything, are the Whataburger orange, and if you want to get fired, I don't know if this is still the case. It was probably 6-7 years ago. If you come into Whataburger, you come into work and you're carrying a competitor drink or anything, that's instant termination. You don't you come into work with a cup from a competitor. Interesting.
I can get
It's good stuff though. Yeah, if you come across one, you have to try it. They got a big menu, but you got to do the work. And if you're really hungry, you do what's called the double meat with cheese.
Okay. Well, Anthony Drager posted here, so now I know where they are. So you got 38 in Alabama, 41 in Arizona, 17 in Arkansas, 7 in Colorado, 45 in Florida, 27 in Georgia, 7 in Kansas, 28 in Louisiana, 12 in Mississippi, 19 in Missouri, 1 in Nevada, 14 in Mexico, 45 in Oklahoma.
Oh wow.
There are none in blue states.
8 in South Carolina, 22 in Texas, and 751 in Texas.
Like I said, none in blue states.
Yeah.
We struggle.
Yeah, you're right. There isn't a single blue state on there.
No,
well, I guess, has Nevada been called yet?
Yes.
Yeah, somebody told me that went to her.
No way.
That's what somebody said earlier.
Okay.
But I looked at the map and it was still white. So I don't know.
I don't know. He was ahead, so I don't know. I get in Arizona, I guess, is still undecided.
I thought that get decided for him.
Yeah, it was decided for her. If they're in Arizona, I missed that, then I'm mistaken.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So there you go. So
well, the one in Nevada is on the strip, so it doesn't count. That's like and
there's
its
only
own territory. It's
like the District of Columbia, right, Michael?
Yeah, it's something along the or Rome in the Pope, where the Pope lives in Vatican City. It's its own little territory in Rome.
Right. And there's only one in Nevada too, so that's an outlier for sure. Okay. Well,
Nevada and Arizona are still officially uncalled.
Okay.
Uncalled, leaning red.
Okay.
Jim, I put you right away for wins of the week, but I wanted to just start off. It's been a week, a little over a week now since you addressed the community. Talk to us about adoption. Talk to us about questions that you might even you've been getting. Anything that we want to bring people up to speed with. But I'd love to hear about like post DattoCon, what's the uptick been like? And
well, I don't even know if we have to have this called the rest of the day because we've covered all the important stuff with Whataburger. So locations, people know where the locations are. We know the menu.
Could we start,
Thanks, Chris? I know what to order when I go there.
Do you think we could do Chick-fil-A before we move on?
Oh, no.
That's next week. Slow
All right.
down. Pump the brakes. Yeah, Andrew, happy to walk through. It's certainly been a very busy week since DattoCon. And I can tell you at this point that, well, at this point, hopefully everyone knows, we were acquired by Kaseya and we were implemented in a new license type or a subscription, if you will, called Kaseya 365 User. And as of last night, it was well over 400 new MSPs that have signed up for 365 User.
Wait, so you were at, give or take, I don't know, 1,200 pre-announcement, and you just went and added another 400.
So let's put this in perspective. Yeah, it took us three years and 11 months to get to 1,200 MSP partners, and we added 400 in 7 days.
So basically, Pat has been sandbagging for 3 years
Apparently,
and 4 months.
Ryan, Pat, the entire go-to-market team, sandbagging.
Not Anthony. He's
No, definitely.
that dude.
That's an
So,
amazing stat, Jim.
How are you going to onboard 400 new partners in the next 30 days?
With style.
yeah. So
That's a tremendous uplift.
Yeah. So, and I should say, some of them are existing SaaS Alerts partners that are just upgrading to 365 User, but most of them are net new to SaaS Alerts at least. But
Did you guys pause while I was gone?
did we what?
Pause while I was gone.
Oh, wow.
Well, we're having a moment of silence in a minute.
Yeah.
But
So in terms of the onboarding question, we anticipated this and we created a very extensive self-onboarding system for those people that are coming on, and people are now paying for their onboarding at a different level. So if you want all self-onboarding, it's one level. If you want basically some level of support, it's another, and then you get like a pro version, if you will.
is there a deep fake Ben version for MSA?
So MSA is distinct and different. There's no way we could deep fake Ben. You just can't replicate him. Yeah. So managed is a complete and distinct animal from all of it. So if you're on, let's just say someone on this call has upgraded to 365 User and you have managed, you're going to get billed by Kaseya for 365 User, and you will get billed from SaaS Alerts for managed.
I would say caution there because I'm being told it's different from
I
billing
was-
perspective.
I was told the same
No.
thing.
What,
No,
don't know.
Jim, I was told it was like you're saying, that we deal with that directly with you.
yes, correct.
Well, SaaS Alerts.
Yeah. Managed is billed SaaS Alerts direct.
Jim, what do you like? This isn't a setup question, but like, what do you take away? Obviously, Kaseya has scale, but and Gary, by the way, Gary wants me to have you on the cyber call next week to talk about, this rapid adoption, but like, can you distill anything from this? Like, is it just people weren't aware of, SaaS based, a SOAR for, their M365, like what did this? What?
Well, look, we've been at this for over 3.5 years now, and you go to all the shows and you do all the events and you do a lot of really good marketing. You think everyone knows who you are and what you do.
Right.
The reality is that there's a big chunk of the market that had no idea who the hell we were and what we did. So once our go-to-market team at DattoCon last week didn't take a breath. Once that announcement was made, for all the folks that were there, we were inundated with interest. People just coming to us and saying, "Hey, look, we need to know about this. Like, I'm thinking about doing this." Yeah, Daniel Sapp said, his voice is shot from doing all the demos. Like, so there's a lot of folks out there that just didn't know. Once they found out what we did and how we did it and how we can protect them, the level of interest just went through the roof. So, and that's just 365 user. We have, putting this in perspective, in 7 days, we have over 300 MQLs specifically just for SaaS Search standalone.
That was my question. Are you still going to sell to other partners like at Connect IT independently
yeah.
of the K365? Yeah.
Absolutely. So standalone is still very much an option. And we now have, Amy, I mean, you knew all of our marketing numbers in a quarter as SaaS alerts pre-acquisition. What was our, like in Q3, how many MQLs did we produce in 90 days?
In the 700s.
Yeah. So we did almost half of that in 7 days.
Wow.
Way to go, Amy.
Yeah.
Again, sandbagging. All right, Jim, we should move on.
So the big takeaway is, look, I think this is going to end up being bigger than endpoint for Kaseya, because people understand. And look, this is work that we've all done together, right, with this community.
Yeah.
People have come to understand. And Andrew, I don't know if you saw my session, my main stage session at DataCon last week, but I cited the Microsoft Digital Defense Report, right? Citing how many of the threats are now coming specifically through SaaS applications and the user.
Right.
People have now realized, okay, this is where we have to turn our attention.
Yeah. Well, we have Chris right here. Chris, what in your IR cases right now, what percent is identity, social versus, 0-day vols?
And well, it's interesting. So they're almost all identity, and the one that's vulnerability is coupled with identity, meaning like for example, on a firewall vulnerability, there's ways of getting and taking advantage of the vulnerability, but you still have to have credentials. And so the firewall allows you into the network basically, but you still have to have credentials to do it. So the threat actors have to have credentials in some way, shape, or form to do what they do.
For privilege escalation.
For network discovery, privilege escalation, living off the land techniques, all that type of stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, really cool. All right, Jim, let's move on to, unless you have other things. And, again, we'll be asking you this metric each week, and I anticipate it doubling week over week. Okay.
Andrew, while we're on the topic, before you move on, I'm going to skip ahead to my bullet and just, if anyone is interested in learning more specifically about 365 user, there's a webinar happening immediately following this call at 2:00. I'll share the link in the chat if anyone is interested. If you weren't at DataCon and you want a deeper dive or haven't had a time to connect or dig into it. So I'm sure it will be recorded and shared after the fact too, if you can't make it and you just want to pop any registration. So, and then you can skip me later on, and that's all I have.
Awesome. But if you do attend live, we will send you a Whataburger.
How do they prove that they attended live?
I don't know.
That's their problem.
Well, actually, they give you that metric and go to webinar. So who's alive and who's after. So
I'll have with the team over there and figure it out.
All right, so let's kick it off some wins. See if we got some others besides NBK's some win. Jim, are you frozen? No.
I don't know. Am I?
No, you're not frozen.
I didn't know if you
Asking a quick question.
or...
I'm just very still.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. For existing partners, which we've been a partner with SaaS Alerts for quite a while. Is this going to affect pricing in any way for existing partners?
No.
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 Okay.
Yeah. And you're right. Addington has been a partner for a long time, one of the original OGs. I remember Jonathan writing a extensive white paper for me and Chip that was very beneficial in the spring of 2021. So I think I still have it.
I'm glad you remember.
Yeah, I'm sure Michael, you participated in that.
Just a bit, yes.
Yeah. So, yep,
Jim, will you guys still the SASE report?
absolutely.
Okay. Cool. All right. You want to kick it over some wins, Jim? See if we got a lot of people. So I would imagine we got some wins out there.
I hope so.
Anybody want to kick it off?
Wins of the week. Any big
Don't make us
customer
put
safe?
don't make us put Ben on the spot.
Or we'll just start like back old school style. We'll just start pinging people and like tell us your greatest win. You'll just get called on randomly.
Andrew,
Awesome.
maybe you should unshare so we can see everybody's faces. He's trying to hide.
Okay, perfect. Let me-
I want to say hi to Wayne as well. He's calling in today from New Zealand. And Wayne, I don't know if you've joined us on the call before, but I don't know that we see a lot of people from your neck of the woods on the call. So thanks for hopping on so early. It's a big time difference there.
Yeah, no, it's only a few hours ahead behind, sort of.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
7 o'clock in the morning here, Friday morning. So
Okay.
yeah, no, it's all good.
All
Thank
right.
you,
Well,
Wayne.
good morning.
Yeah, morning.
I'm landing in New Zealand on Monday morning.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I have to fly from JFK to Auckland. I'm speaking in Australia next week for the DattoCon APAC show.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I hope you've got some accommodation booked. That's what, a 20-hour flight. So you're leaving like Saturday or something stupid.
Yeah, I'm leaving Saturday, 5:15 p.m. Eastern time from JFK, New York, and it's 22 hours straight to Auckland.
Oh wow.
Yep.
Jim?
22 hours, yeah.
Holy
Yeah.
cow.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna go insane.
That is a
Take some really good entertainment stuff.
Entertainment,
flight.
sleeping pills, like anyone else have any other
Yeah.
ideas?
You could
I'm
do
open.
Fly,
We could
fly
do 20
business elite, so you get your own little bedroom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm open to any suggestions.
I think we have a 22-hour marathon call.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that would be awesome. What got me really
Enrique,
depressed.
Enrique, you get the first and last shifts.
There you go.
So
Yeah.
Wayne can appreciate this. I this past Saturday, around 5:30, I think to myself, I look at my watch, I'm like, you know what? A week from now I'll be in the air. And then I went through the evening, went to bed that night. I woke up on Sunday morning and looked at my watch and said, okay, I'll be halfway there.
Yep. Yeah, no. Don't try and drive anywhere. Take a taxi or Uber or shuttle or whatever. Don't drive. Don't get a car from the airport. Just, you're going to be shattered.
Yes.
You are going to be shattered. Don't do
Yes.
it.
Yes. Okay.
Is Shedded
Or-
like taken for a ride in the
No, in terms of just
No,
like
Just physically.
you're going to be absolutely
wiped out.
dog tired.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how long it's
And-
going to
and-
take me
Yeah,
to get back to normal. But yes, Eric, you're right.
day and a half.
They drive on the wrong side of the road. I have
It
been
is
to
the other
Australia
side of the
before.
world.
Yeah, they drive on the wrong side of the road as far as we're concerned. I've driven before in Australia 5 years ago, and yeah, that's a trip. Especially going in the rotary. You get into the
Yeah,
rotary.
roundabouts.
Yeah, that really messes you.
Yeah.
Okay, we digress.
we beat this. Anyone else? Ben, you got anything you want to share from the managed team?
Only what I think Steve and King shared with us as far as a new a phishing kit that he's identified or found an article about that I'll put in the chat that our system should be able to identify pretty easily. So if you haven't read that before, definitely take a look.
This is a new website for me. How is this? What's the credibility, or do we have a way of ranking this this website for future use?
Well, it comes with the
First
Ben
one for
seal
me
of
too.
approval.
It's a definitely a new one. I will say that. But any site that gives me indicators of compromise and gives me detailed Azure logs is okay by me.
Awesome. All right. Let's move on. Amanda, you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Awesome. So we got some from Leron's note, we've got some new Fortify recommendations.
Yeah, just a couple to run through today. We've added 3 new custom recommended actions. They all pertain to MS Defender tenant block list. It's just that we have 3 different ones, one for IP addresses, one for domains and addresses, and one for URLs. And we've added an additional parameter to the SaaS Alerts Fortify anti-phishing policy collection that allows you to show the first contact safety tip. We are getting very close to being able to have the report only feature on production. Part of that work has been released, so that is coming very soon, and I will update on this call and show everybody how to do that once it is fully on production. And that is it for me, Andrew.
Awesome. All right. So I am going to share out my screen. Just give me a minute here.
Soon, Andy, to your question in chat. As soon as counted in weeks.
All right. You ready, Mr. Lair?
Ready.
All right. So I got a special guest today. He's been with us before, but
When I was in London.
that's right.
Battling
The connectivity, but I think this time it'll be a little bit better. So we talked last week, and that's really cool, Jim, about referencing the digital defense report. I dug deeper into it. It's vast report. And one thing that kind of stood out, and I will go into full screen mode a second. It can be my eyes, or actually I can look on Chris's laptop for chat. But I wanted to talk about their section on incident readiness. Bear with me. On the front side. Yeah, done that. Oh my gosh, bear with me, guys. Microsoft is being.
I did that.
I'm not sure what the heck just happened. Bear with me.
Went to presenter mode.
How do I get into this? All right, let's try this one more time.
For some reason, record from the slideshow.
Okay. Let's
Even
try-
a call for IT geeks has technical difficulties.
Always, Andy.
Without fail.
All right, let's try this one more time.
Thank you.
How's that? Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I'll enlarge it a little bit. So you can see this. All right, so let me share how I wanted to kind of have you guys look at this. One way I wanted to look at this today was the questions I'm posing for your current prospects and clients. Like, you can raise your hand or not, but what I want to go through is as we talk through each of these sections is, are you asking your customers these questions? And B, could you answer this for all of your existing customers? Right. So let me ask a quick question, and you can raise your hand or just shout it out. If you ask a customer who's responsible for security incidents, what do you think the number one answer you'll get from an MSP's customer is?
You, the MSP.
You got it. Chris, is that true or false?
What was the exact thing? Like,
Who's responsible for the security incident?
Yeah, it's not true. That's fault. Well, that's not the right answer. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So this gets into,
It's kind of a trick question.
right. So again, getting into number one, how well you've defined your agreements with your customers, who's responsible for what. But at the end of the day, in terms of, governance, it's our job, right, as MSP, to start to educate our customers, or not start to, we should be educating them. And by asking them, look, in your company, who's responsible? Do you think they'd have a good answer? Do you think it's a thought-provoking type question? Okay. So Chris, in your experience, when you're working with an MSP on their client, what do you typically find here?
Well, we do find that a lot of times the client is expecting the MSP to know what to do. And at the same time, the MSP is finding out that they don't know everything they're supposed to do. And they find out there are things they just cannot do. So what I mean by that is, when you get into a true incident situation, 99% of the time, you're going to have breach attorneys involved. In order for that breach attorney to invoke attorney-client privilege with your client, you cannot be part of that. So there are conversations and things that happen that the MSP cannot be privy to, because if they are privy to, then that conversation or anything shared in writing with that MSP is not covered under confidentiality, and therefore is discoverable. So when MSPs assume, hey, I'll take the lead, I got it, we're going to run with this, and they find out very quickly that's not possible. Now the customer is in a kind of a difficult situation, because now they're kind of put in charge when they weren't expecting to be in charge. It just gets to be a very quick way of learning a hard lesson.
Yeah, and is this, again, what I wanted also you guys to take a look at these, and I'll give specific pages, but this highlight down here, right, in green is, could you ask your own MSP, right, within your own, looking at the mirror, right, who's responsible? Chris, maybe, and what I wanted to say, why I wanted to talk about this is, what, a specific incident with the gentleman, Eric, can you talk a little bit about, although he was the CEO, he shouldn't really be the one responsible, and why, just because you have the highest title, you may not want that person being responsible.
Well, all of you are pretty much in a situation where you know that the business is yours or part of yours or whatever. And so when it comes down to an incident situation that impacts you directly, I tell people that's their life, their business life flashing before their eyes. And so things get very emotional very quick. And so when you need someone that's in charge on the incident response side, having somebody that has some emotional stability and can kind of keep a level head throughout that whole situation is incredibly important. And, if Eric was here, and I've said it on stage many times, is there were times where he just was not, there's a lot of things going on. He ran into issues with his BDR vendor. There's all sorts of things. His best customers were yelling at him and beating him up. His other customers that he thought were beating him up were bringing in food. So there's just a lot of things he wasn't aware of, and he was having to try to balance and to handle these all at the same time. And it just wasn't the right way to do it. So, fortunately for him, he had a person, Denise, who was in a finance role, but she has kind of that, I don't call it emotional IQ, but she had the ability to take control, keep things calm. The staff trusted her, and she was better at being kind of a point person. And as soon as Eric recognized that, he kind of backed off, and that's what made things go much smoothly. So, like Andrew's saying, when you're looking at yourself in the mirror, you got to be thinking about, hey, in one of the situations where things are going to get hot and heavy, emotional, all those types of things. I make all the decisions every day, but in these types of situations, I might need to stay back. Might still be there to approve things, but I'm not the guy telling this person to go home and get some sleep, or this person to do whatever. You're going to have somebody else do that, so you can make sure that you keep things in check, because everybody's looking to you to keep things in check. And if you put yourself in a situation where you're not able to handle that, the ripple effect amongst your team is going to be terrible.
Because they're looking for leadership,
They're
right?
looking for leadership and they're used to you being a leadership. So don't put yourself in a situation where you're going to fail.
And Chris, the other thing I wanted to talk about, and Chip, I do want to ask you about your ISO audit and kind of getting ready, you know, as you went through the incident, IR readiness process and things. But can you talk about, you know, you were talking, you and I were having breakfast this morning, the section around avoiding blame, how when the breach attorney does get involved with a customer, like you're the MSP, there happened to be an incident, there's a breach attorney involved now because there's cyber insurance. Where can things go wrong for the MSP, even though there really shouldn't, you know, feel like they're to blame?
Yeah, right. I mean, I've seen for some reason a recent trend where the somebody gets compromised for whatever reason, and the MSP is really, really defensive when they shouldn't be. They need to be cooperative. And we've even had situations where we've had to basically cut the MSP off completely because they were completely uncooperative, and we're actually in there messing around and doing things on the systems while we're trying to do the work from an incident response side that we need to do. So, and then we've had issues where the MSPs are just incredibly abrasive and just get in the way and just try to block things getting done because they just feel that, you know, maybe we're on their turf or whatever the heck may be. And it just looks bad. It looks bad to the client, looks bad to the legal, looks bad to the insurance carrier involved. I mean, it starts to raise a lot of red flags. And, you know, in those cases, I'm not gonna say all those cases, but in the cases, especially where we get the MSPs that are abrasive and get in the way, they're not at fault. We had somewhere where the MSPs are at fault, but, and we've had some where the MSPs have handled it very well. We've had some that have handled it very poorly. But the most important thing you can do is cooperate, understand the process, understand what everything's going to do, and not try to point fingers or do anything of that nature. I mean, if it's going to go, it's going to come up, but usually it's going to come up later on. It's not going to come up day one, day two, or that first week or whatever. But if you can cooperate most of the time, even if it is something that maybe you're not directly responsible for, but it's maybe something that the client thinks you should be responsible for, even if your contract doesn't say it, being cooperative, being participative plays out well, and most people will not ditch their MSP as a result.
Yeah, so Chip, when you went through your ISO, can you talk a little about the IR process to a bit, like, you know, how they looked at that from a governance perspective? Oh, and by the way, hold on, guess who's here?
Talking to.
Sassler. Look, it's Gary Harlan.
Hey guys,
Hey, Gary.
aren't you all supposed to be here? Oh, it's the wrong conference. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There's a lot of us there.
Good talk to you later.
See ya. But you know what I'm saying? Chip, to what extent did they, you know, look at IR readiness and IR planning and you know, governance?
Well, pretty extensively. I mean, they need to know really for any organization, and you should have this just for SOC, let alone ISO, or, you know, a written incident response plan, communications being at the very, very peak of that. Who's going to handle customer communications? Who's going to handle internal communications? You know, trying to avoid that panic moment that Chris was alluding to earlier, making sure that everybody's roles are designated. Because the most important thing about getting to the bottom of an incident, whether it's remediating from a down system, like in a product like ours, hey, something's gone wrong, the system isn't functioning properly, or it's a compromise at a client, is letting the technical people do their work without getting pestered like crazy. And that all comes down to communications. And, you know, so definitely important to have a written plan that includes a diagram of who's doing the communicating at the top and who they're communicating on behalf of. So for instance, in our environment, obviously, if we had some kind of a major incident, Jim would be dealing with the external facing side and the press, and I would be dealing on the technical side with our technical team and interfacing with anyone else who is helping us resolve it. And having that clearly laid out and the roles specified, it makes all the difference in the world, because then people aren't running around going, well, what should I say to whom? You know, that's the big question. And that's a question that faces externally to your customers, and faces internally to, as Chris was walking through, if there's already a suspicion or finger pointing going around, people are defensive about potential legal consequences. Who should I say, what should I say to whom is an awfully important topic. You got to write it out.
Absolutely. In fact, let me see if I can just, I'm flipping to the next screen here. It's interesting, Chip, what you said. Just look at the next screen, because this is where, and Microsoft did a really good job on this. And I thought the analogy was great. Who's your first responders, right? So who's responsible? But then, if you think about it, from a perspective of, the paramedic, right? You wouldn't sit there and go, I wonder if, the paramedics are going to do X, Y, or Z. Well, we probably hope that the paramedics have rehearsed and gone through what it's like to, do, CPR or a tracheotomy. We hope it's not the first time, right? That they've gone through that protocol, number one. So I thought it was a really good way to, again, to open up a conversation with prospects and customers just beyond the typical, right? This is about business risk, right, Chip? Who's going to be first to respond in your group? And as you said, Jim's going to do this over here with external. I'm going to do this over here. And then if you look at this little rubric they have, right, with preparation, and what you said right here, Chip, communication, right up front. You didn't even see this slide, but it's literally what they're talking about right out of the gate to be successful. So I thought that was interesting. Chris, anything on the preparation, communication, execution?
I think I've seen this where also people don't recognize if people are available to be incident responders, right? So you find out that they may, like, from a skill set and from lines that have the capabilities, but they have obligations that take them away to where they can't sit there in the office, sleep in the office, and do all that type of stuff too. So there's a lot of things you got to be thinking about who you assign these roles to. Make sure that they have backups in those key roles. Because when the proverbial poop hits the fan, you don't want to have to be making ad hoc decisions about those types of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And it says it right here, right? Often IR teams find their customers don't have a reporting plan in place. Chris, how many times, and just like raise your hand if all your customers have an IR plan in place and have clear communication. And go ahead, Andy, you have your hand up.
I had a question about, is there a template or something that you could help us based on the severity of the incident response plan, having a more detailed roles and responsibility, or is it just generic for all incident responses? In other words, I see there being
to, maybe talk about that, Chris, and severity and.
Yeah, so you don't want to overcomplicate it. I was at a bank. We had 300 branches, 3,500 employees, and we didn't get crazy complicated with it. We had the key roles remain consistent across the types of incidents. And then, but it really kind of comes down to, maybe you think about that in the stages, right? So you may have a stage of where you're not in an incident response plan where it's not yet declared an incident, but you're still going to handle it as an incident. And so that may only have a smaller number of people involved until you go through maybe the process of declaring it an incident, and then you'll have more people involved. So it's not like you're going to every time shove 50 people in a war room and say, let's get to work. So you do got to be thinking about things like that. But what I have seen is people try to scenario this thing out to death and write their plan for every possible scenario. And that's incredibly ineffective because you can't rehearse that very well, and it's very hard to follow in a real world situation.
I think one thing that, and I'll point out, Chris, there's a MSP in the Midwest, a good friend of mine, Chris Sears, and decent sized MSP. But anyway, but one thing I would say is I thought they did really well is they tell their all the way to the first level help desk people, you will not get in trouble if you suspect something. So not a little off tangent into what you asked, Andy. but I think it's really important that you empower your entry level positions to not be afraid to escalate something like, hey, this looks weird. I've never seen this before, right? And they have a group, their next level, you know, of engineers that know how to do some basic, right, security investigation. So they have tiers, right? You know, and if it reaches up to Chris, who's, you know, the guy who heads up all the technical, and they've done their tree of investigations, then they have a protocol where they have an IR team on retainer. You know, unless it's a full, you know, full blown, they know it's an incident. Obviously, cyber's involved, but if they're in the investigative stages, then there's a demarc between, you know, a service incident and a cyber incident, and they tell their customer ahead of time, and it's in their, you know, in their terms of service and everything, that if we get to this point, right, and we feel it's beyond our scope, we are going to bring in a third party. We have them on retainer. We're going to charge you an hour of time. It's going to run about $600, but all of that's up front, and is the point, right? And if they deem it's null and great, you know, wonderful. Worst case scenario, we're out an additional $600. But if there is something nefarious, you'd want to know that way sooner than later. So, Eric Monroe, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just to rewind a little bit to the question of do all your customers have this in place? You know, my experience is that we've been talking to our customers for about 3 years on this topic, and recently they would get a cyber insurance audit, or they're going through some sort of M&A, and then all of a sudden they get all these questions, and they go, "Well, we need this information in 3 days," when it's like a 3-week project at best. So that's some of the challenges that I'm seeing over here, is that, you know, we're talking to these clients forever about this stuff, and then all of a sudden they get an outside influence on them, and now it has to be done right away, and that puts a lot of pressure on our compliance and security team.
It's a great point, and I think it brings up again, this is on us.
Oh no, they froze.
They got some type of attack.
You froze, Andrew.
You're back, Andrew.
You went Max Headroom on us.
Okay now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I was saying, I think this is where it's, you know, very much on us, Eric, to bring the present to the future and do storytelling. Hey, look, in my experience of working with companies just like you.
Yeah, we do that absolutely every single time we meet, in every VCIO meeting.
Right.
And it's just
what we find might happen is, this often happens with your larger customers, and why we might want to look at together some of your contracts, that at some point, right, because based on the companies they're obligated to deal with, you might receive some type of questionnaire from an audit they're going through. And let me ask you a question. If, you know, that happened, right, and they needed that turned around tomorrow, and that's 80% of your revenue, what would you do? How would that impact the relationship?
Yeah, they would say, "Eric, do it and get it done. I don't care how much it costs." And so we're charging them overtime and and all that.
Yeah. So again, you're not going to get everyone, but again, bringing that future of the presence story.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Any other questions we might have out there, Amy? I'm in full
looking right here.
screen mode. What?
Nope, no
No?
questions.
Okay.
Just comments. Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let's move on. Second. So I can move this forward. Okay. And I'll resize here. Did I wait? Bear with me. I think I might have jumped one ahead. No, I did that one. Okay. All right. So, you know, why do organizations, you know, fail at cyber resilience? Well, again, Microsoft does a really good job here pointing this out. Well, and Chris, this is what we've been talking about, and Chip, you've been talking about, right? Again, I didn't show you this, right? It's why things fail. because we don't have clearly delineated roles and responsibilities. I mean, think about this in your MSP, right? It's no different about, Eric, you as the business owner going in and talking to another business. So say, hey, look, I know for us, we can't deliver a good service without understanding who's responsible for what, knowing our costs, our metrics, etc. Right. And, in terms of, this particular scenario, right, in the event of an incident, right, do you know who, right, within your company, right, roles and responsibilities should fall on? And it talks about, this is, the number one, this is where I think a lot of MSPs, and Chris, I'd love you to talk about this, is you do a lot of these, you tabletops, and this can be a very effective assessment tool to not only, it's a service and you're generating revenue, but the postmortems, help you spot gaps, right? Potential additional revenue
Oh yeah,
opportunities.
definitely project opportunities. And what I tell people when you go through this with your client, I mean, obviously there's a revenue generation, but you seem to learn a lot more about your clients. You might think you know your client really well, but when you put them through in this situation, they start to come up with things that they didn't think about before about their business, and maybe aspects of things that maybe you thought weren't that important, but once you hear it come out of their mouth in a situation like this, you find out it's important. You start to hear things more about staff and those types of things. So it's a really good learning exercise and kind of a relationship nurturing. It's one of the best relationship nurturing exercises that an MSP can do and make money on it. So it's got a lot of wins.
I think this is where you find out, like you might think, oh yeah, their line of business app is this, but you find out, Chris, that line of business app is dependent on this additional thing over here, and this person that's external or this third party that supports this application that you didn't know about. No,
that's exactly right. I mean, I'm putting a presentation together for some insurance brokers in the healthcare side, and healthcare, that's especially relevant. I mean, we get in so many situations where, there's recovery has to be done, and we depend on one of their third-party vendors to reestablish some software, some device, medical equipment, whatever the case may be. And those vendors put up their hands and they're like, nope, we're not going to do anything until you can prove that you're secure. And it really makes no sense, to be honest with you. And most of the time what these vendors are after is for you to share all your IOCs with them so they can protect themselves. But those are the things that people don't realize until they're actually in an incident situation, that they have all these other dependencies, and those things just don't snap. I mean, a lot of times, especially in the healthcare business, the vendors are, 1,000 times larger than the victim is, the client is, and the client has no other option. It's not like they can go, well, I'm gonna go choose another vendor to handle this. They are stuck like Chuck with that vendor, and we have to do a lot of talking and phone calls and documenting and attestations and all that kind of stuff to just get the vendor to respond.
Chris, do you ever find out too in the incident readiness and tabletop, for example, they might, when we're talking about the mission critical app, right, the line of business app, you ask about, okay, well, what kind of service plan do you have with them? What kind of SLA? And you've got, we've got I'm making this up, right? You have the basic. What does basic give you? Well, it's 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. Okay, so if this happened on, Sunday, you've got your biggest operating load, patient load on Monday. What happens on Sunday? Can we get anybody?
Yeah, usually not. And a lot of times we find out that they just have like support on an existing product that hasn't been developed for any type of improvements in 10 years. And so even they can troubleshoot some simple stuff. It comes down to a full system recovery. The vendor's like, no, we don't have anybody to handle that. I mean, I was having dinner the other night with some people and this came up, but we actually had a case last year where the organization was still using Lotus Notes. And I had, and we had to find somebody that could bring that infrastructure up. So it's crazy what you find out there, what people have. We've had people that have we've had companies that have their own gas pump, and the gas pump is run by a system running Windows, like an old version of Windows 7. Or even Windows XP a lot of times, and they don't tear it out because they have to rip out the pump too. They have to change out everything, and so they just don't do it. And a lot of people just didn't pay attention to that. They just thought that was a piece in the corner, and they didn't really realize what what impact it had. So yeah, it's kind of craziness. So when you go through these exercises and you start talking about things are down, what things are going to be up, and you make the client think about those things and talk about those things. And you also tell them, hey, it's the first of the month, it's the middle of the month, it's the end of the month, it's the end of the quarter, whatever. They may have different decisions and different thoughts because of the time of the year, time of the month, and all that kind of stuff. So
It's a really good point. You're dealing with a CPA firm. Okay, it's the end, it's January, Chris.
Yeah,
Is there a difference in urgency from June?
June, yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. And then yeah, those gears will really start moving a lot at that time, and then they'll somewhat figure out on their own that you are not like the only thing that needs to happen during an IR situation, that your piece is important, but it's not the majority of what has to happen.
Yeah. Chip, any insights or thoughts as you hear this?
No, super good advice. I used to tell people to get them in the right frame of mind. You got to plan for this like it's Christmas Eve and your oven just went out and your whole family's coming for dinner. That's the mindset.
Yeah.
How are you going to deal with a failure or an incident at the worst possible time?
Yeah. And you do, again, I think why this is important is you're doing it without a FUD, right? Hey, these are things we do with our best clients, right? We walk through these exercises with them. Let me tell you what we find, right? Why we do it, what they find valuable, right? How this, impacts better relationships with their customers, their ability to meet their legal obligations and their contracts, on and on and on. You put it in their language of what's most important to them. So the last slide I just want to share out of this that I thought was really, again, really well done by Microsoft, is they have basically a framework that you can use, almost this rubric you can use with your clients, right? Again, what part of this is ours, right? That kind of a shared responsibility. What part of this do we maintain responsibility for? What part of this is yours? What part of this is ours together, right? So, Chris, I'll just start off, maybe you can chime in here, but
Yeah.
the operational is really the, thing. A lot of this is where you come in as the MSP. You can say, right, we are responsible. Day in, day IT operations, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, making sure your side of things are documented, make sure that firewall logging is enabled, make sure things are configured correctly. So if something does happen, and the first question someone like us asks is, do the firewall logs exist? Yeah, but they roll off in an hour. I mean, those are the types of things that you want to have checked off that's on your side that you're supposed to be doing. And just like it says here, I mean, understanding that if you're responsible or you have access to the systems where the alerts are going, that you have the ability to grant us access and all those types of things is incredibly important in the operational side.
By the way, on this, and your point on firewall logs, Chris, again, us maybe just asking or a few more questions, is it, again, Andy, is it healthcare? Okay, well, if it's healthcare and they have, reporting requirements, right? If the B word did come up and they're like, yeah, well, we're really not, collecting firewall logs. Okay, well, how the hell are we going to figure out if there was exfiltration or not, right? So now all of a sudden, what happens there, Chris, if, for example, it is regulated and I can't give that information, and I'm kind of at fault because I'm not doing what I should be doing.
So a lot of times, and I'm not the attorney, but a lot of times what happens is they have to assume that the worst happened, and it probably didn't. So instead of potentially knowing or be able to argue that only 100 gigs got out the door or whatever, name your number, they have 10 terabytes of data and there's no proof that says the 10 terabytes didn't get out.
Yeah, it's the how do you prove a negative problem.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly right.
exactly,
It's
Jeff.
exactly right. So in healthcare, that's very common. In other areas, it takes a little bit of work sometimes, but I would say with the way the regulations are going and attorneys general are getting involved, you're going to see more instances where people have to prove the name or prove that something happened, and then be able to support it with the correct logging and stuff that we would collect and put in our forensics report.
Good. Well, I know we're button up here. Was this helpful at all, by the way? And having this, questions and framework and things to, ask your customers?
I expressed, Andrew, to Amy that this would be great content to have to educate our customers in general about, and to have Sazlerts be a part of that content creation.
Yeah, this is awesome. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate you coming on again.
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome. Jim, I expect another 700 or what was it, 423 net new
Yeah.
customers next week.
I will not be on this call next week because I'll be on my way back from Australia.
No, you said we're going to do a Sazzy call the entire way.
Yeah, I thought you can get Wi-Fi on the plane.
Sassathon.
That's right,
Yeah.
a Sazzathon. There you go.
Maybe there's a Guinness record
And-
that you set.
And by the way, I'll just say it again. You'll be soaring with Jim Milley with Sazalerts.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Jim, I'll be in
marketing it.
Colorado starting Saturday. So if you swing by the area, I'll be there all month.
Okay.
Chip,
Sounds
I'm
good.
sorry.
Jim, have a safe.
Thanks, everybody. Have
See
a
you
good one.
guys.
Hi, guys.
Bye all.